in the month of February before we say welcome March. So it's very easy how time flies and you're wondering, when did we say Happy New Year? We're almost getting to the end of the first quarter of the year 2025. But so far, I think it's been good for Nigeria, inflation-wise, given the reports of the NBS for January. But let's wait to see February and then we'll move on to March. And there have been some economic reforms which we've analyzed here on the table. We'll intend to do much more today and we invite you to be part of it, not just by watching, but also by commenting, letting us know what your perspective is on the issue. I do this with two gentlemen. One of them is called Dr. Idahosa Osamhanze and the other Oyinpreye Krumale. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning, Madam Blessing.
Blessing, good morning. Great Nigeria out there. We cannot have a better yesterday. It's always getting better by the day. Naira is appreciating, the economy is becoming stronger, and I think that the hopes are rising.
Yes, and you know that my status just improved because I assume the status now of Madam.
Oh my God.
You call me Madam.
Oh, two of you have this appellation to your name, Dr. Osamhanze. I like the way it sounds, though. And Madam Blessing.
Okay.
Mine is just Oyinpreye.
So says the tea drinking man. Okay, now let's look at some of the stories that have made it into the news. The federal government introduces a new policy requiring contractors to provide an active advance payment guarantee and a performance bond before receiving payments from the Ministry of Works. So the APG, which is the Advance Payments Guarantee, ensures that funds advanced to contractors are used for the project, while a performance bond guarantees the contractor will complete the project as agreed. This new payment policy aims to enhance accountability and quality in road construction across Nigeria. There have been a lot of back and forth between contractors and sometimes the agency of government awarding the contract regarding the contract amount and even date of completion. Sometimes you find abandoned projects and you're wondering, why is the project abandoned? What is delaying or what has caused the delay for the project? A lot of issues. But this time around, going forward to enact a policy where there is the advance payments guarantee and a performance bond before receiving payment from the ministry. Will this do justice? Will this ensure that we don't find abandoned projects anymore? Doc?
Yeah, I think it's not a new policy. It's just the fact that somebody is trying to re-emphasize it. In terms of the collusion that we have all spoken about between the private sector and the public sector, really to make things not to work. Elsewhere, there's always what they call service level agreement for every contract. Now, once the service level agreement is signed, everybody understands what your role is in the contract. Now, contracting is a phase. When you are procuring works, you say, oh, this is the road we want to do. The first thing is to pre-qualify those who should be part of the bidding process in the first place, to see that they are technically qualified to participate, that they have the financial wherewithal to sustain the project. But like they say here, it's always a game of who know who. And some of these rules that are laid down are not followed. And that's why people talk about 95% of the corruption that happens everywhere in the world happens in procurement. It happens in procurement. And this is because we have plenty of insiders dealing. People who are supposed to be supervising have a stake. The person who is supposed to be the overseer has a stake. And therefore, what is needed to be done are never really done. And I think this is where we need to always prioritize excellence, merit over mediocrity or favoritism. If we continue to put and write policy documents, even the words that are written are not obeyed, they are obeyed in breach. So this will not make any difference, except that those who govern, nobody is saying that you cannot give contract to somebody you know really, but also make sure that this person has the competence to do the job and that he has what it takes to do the job. So also to ensure that this performance bond that is taken from the insurance are not what they used to say in our side, dagbo dagbo. So we find that
you will need to tell us the name of that.
So the performance
It's
bonds
not fake.
They are not fake.
Dagbo, repeat it. You repeat Dagbo twice.
Oh, please. Let's not go into that.
You know. So I think these are issues that we really need to deal with, so that when we are having to engage people to work, we should understand that this is a national assignment and that we owe it a duty to both God and man, that when we sign a covenant or an agreement, that breaching it, we are not just offending man, we're also offending God. And I think this is where I will leave it for prayer.
But Doc, really, let's even look at the Dagbo situation you talked about. That could also happen. I mean, where people have to provide certain documents because they are requirements, but they are not genuine. So that's already could create a problem. The purpose of that performance bond is to ensure that you do the job as agreed. But if it is not a real performance bond, it means that you also get to walk away when you default as a contractor.
Well, okay. I like the fact that there are two things, and which Doc has really painted a very good picture of it. The APG, which is
The advance
payment guarantee. I like that advance payment guarantee, because whoever it is that will emerge as the successful bidder of the contract is expected to pay some amount of money up front that proves that this contractor has the financial muscle to carry out that specific project, even when the money from the government is not forthcoming, and it's not forthcoming in the right time. So if we can guarantee the implementation of that policy, that APG, it is better. Then the other part that has to do with the bond specifies that, look, this project must be completed at this specific time. So no contractor or whoever is giving out this contract or those who succeeded in the bidding process can fail, because this will be enshrined in the agreement between the government and the contractor that is going to execute that. Now, let me cast our minds back to September 2nd, 2024. The Guardian published an article where they were talking about assessing government roads and the guidelines that the Federal Ministry of Works had laid down for contractors to follow in executing these roads. And we were meant to understand that we have about 200,000 kilometers of road in the country, and about 34,000 of these 200,000 belongs to the federal government. That means like 166,000 kilometers of these roads then belong to the state government and the local government. He also said that in establishing this, we must make sure that the guidelines expects that the communities have a role to play whenever roads is being built in their communities, and that they have the right to sit down, monitor the time, the execution of the road, and to report any defaulting contractor. The communities, they have to, but when they give all that guidelines, making the communities and other stakeholders to be participants, in the process of executing this contract, there was no number stated that, look, this is the right number to call when you observe or note that any contractor is defaulting.
Yeah,
that is one killer.
We cannot, as a people, abdicate the responsibility.
No, it's a participatory thing.
That's what I'm saying. You see, I can't give my house contract to be built and I'm saying community to come and be looking at the house. We have a lot of people who are in the Ministry of Works who sit there in the office and do nothing from day to day. Now, there's a supervisor that is assigned to that particular job who is there on a daily basis to see whether the contractors are working or they are not working. Elsewhere, if they give you road to do, at least I'm familiar with the United Arab Emirates, what betide you that you do an inferior job? The entire APGA is claimed and the entire contract sum is fined to the contractor. You are fined the entire sum. Why they withdraw the APGA, the money that was advanced to you, they take it back in full because that's already guaranteed. The entire sum for the contract is fined and you are blacklisted from working in that environment. If you like, go to hell. So that's why you see this rate of infrastructure there. Why are we looking for community to help us? Because the person that is employed by the state who earn money monthly from the Consolidated Revenue Fund is compromised in some cases. And then, of course, we can also not absorb the awarding agency or ministry who themselves are violating the provisions of the Procurement Act that understand that if you don't have money in the coffer, you should not sign contract. You are awarding contract without fund.
So I was getting to, I wanted us to get to that point because it's a two-way traffic. It's not only one-sided. So on the part of the contractor, this policy is to ensure that the contractor, once payment is advanced to you, you are on the site. You complete the job within specified time, no default. But on the side of the agency or the ministry that is awarding the contract, there has to be a policy to ensure that the ministry, like you pointed out, has the fund enough to complete the job. Because this may create problems for the contractor, where a project has been awarded, some part of the fund is released, but not totally to take care of the contract, the work done. So the contractor goes to site and start the job, hoping that when payment needs to be made for the job to continue, that happens, but it doesn't happen, and so the job is stalled, and the contractor at the end of the day is still blamed for delaying the job. Maybe depending on the muscle of the firm, depending on the size of the firm, they may be able to hold grounds or strong grounds with the ministry and say, this is not our fault, it's not coming from us, it is from you. So what happens to protecting the contractor as well, where the delay in the completion of the job is not a fault of theirs, but the delay in monies approved? What then happens?
Okay, so this is where I actually wanted to mention those areas where in the Ministry of Works, it is the building supervisors. In David Umahi's speech, he vividly itemized and highlighted it, that look, it is mandatory and equally enshrined in those guidelines that the supervisor of that project from the Ministry of Works must be on site physically, not remotely, to make sure that the contractor goes ahead with that. Now, to complete the work in the specified time and according to the quality and the standard. Now, to what you said, when you come for a bidding process, You are coming, it's like a CV. You are not going there, you are going there with your track record. You are going there with your track record, and I'm sure the authorities that gives out that job is not only assessing your level of competence or engineering, or looking at how many jobs you've done in the past and how laudable and great your CV is, but also what is critical and part of your CV is the financial capacity of that organization that is bidding for that contract.
So are you indirectly saying
so
that contractors who bid for job should have money enough to complete the job, whether they receive funds from the agency or not?
No. So this is it. There is almost an established law, I will call it, that when you get a contract, you do not expect for you to be paid 100% of the No, I'm coming just a moment. I know you're paid 100% of it and told to go and do the job. Most of it, the federal government, and I dare say even private individuals, have suffered from lack of diligence and the level of lack of transparency from contractors. So when you are coming for a contract, you must have shown a side that you have the financial capacity or access to credit to be able to deliver on this.
So what
when you come, so the government, let's say the government gives you 60%.
By access to funds.
As an organization, as a company, of course, your resume is there. Access to fund in the sense that
wait.
I think you guys should let me land.
No.
So when the government give you 60% to do that,
they can't even they can't get 60%. That is the point that you're making.
No, when you get whatever, like 50 or 40%, because even if we do not agree on that, the APG is here. The APG is here.
The ideal. You are talking the ideal.
Well, we must discuss the ideal.
But what is
the reality?
What is the fundamental problem? Procurement law says that this is a sum you can advance. It's a law. It's not done based on discretion. Mobilization. You are going to give the contractor 20% mobilization. Now, in that agreement, milestones are determined when the next payment is supposed to come until the project is delivered, and then the retention fee, which is 5%, is held by government until that project, if it's a road construction, stand the test of time. Now, what we are seeing in most of the works contracts, especially federal work contracts, is that by the time you give the contractor the 20%, they are not even sure of the next one, because they know that in the ministry you don't have the money. The budget is not there. They are not funded. So the 20% for most of the contractors is like
free money.
Gift, because the awarding agencies and departments or ministry know that they don't even have money to do the contract.
So are they expecting the contractor to use his money to complete the project?
And by the time,
that can't happen.
After 1 year or 6 months, 7 months, they have more money again, and they want to turn eye on the contract. The contractor will come back and say to them, you see, the time you gave us this contract, inflation was 40%. Dollar rate was 1,500. Today now, inflation has gone to 46%, and dollar rate has gone to 1,008. Therefore, we have to reevaluate this thing. And then they will come back to table and start to renegotiate. That's the situation. If government has money to even give advance to contractor to say, okay, we can mobilize you 60%. And that's why you see Wike, when he was governor of Rivers State, was emphasizing this singular fact that there's no way contractor can finish job if we follow what the procurement law says. And that's why almost all the contract awarded in Rivers State ensure that bulk of the money gets into a specific account where the contractor can be drawing from on delivered milestone.
Okay.
And I think that's what it's doing in FCT at the moment. And that's why when you go to FCT, all FCT projects, they are funded and the contractors are on site. And can give a date for commissioning on the day of awarding that contract because he has fund
for the job.
Yeah. But most of the challenge that really faces federal government work is not performance bond, is not APG, is the fact that the ministries that are giving out the job don't have money and they are hoping that money will come. And of course, as long as we remain with the envelope system of fund disbursement, we will be around this circle. And I think what is important for us is the fact that government, and I think even the Ministry of Works, should insist that if there's no fund, contract should not be awarded.
You know, to what Spirit was saying, that the contractors should have access to credit, their resume should show. I think sometimes we abuse certain things. These contractors are business people. So you, that is the ministry awarding a contract, you don't have funds for it. But you expect that a private business has fund enough to complete that job. And after completion, they would wait for a certain period of time until you're able to reimburse them. Is that good for business? Regardless of the size of the firm. We know how many contractors have done that in the past on the trust that this is government we are dealing with. Once they complete the job, they will be reversed. It takes time. Some of them have to even wait for administrations to change. One regime passes and they're still pursuing the issue of reimbursement from that ministry. It takes a lot happens. So I don't think we should be expecting so much from the contractors. Yes, they should have certain level of funds. One, to show that you have the capacity to deliver. The money is not given to you and then you vanish into thin air.
Okay.
But to expect that for a project that costs millions of naira or sometimes billions of naira, that a federal ministry does not even have the fund, or maybe a state ministry doesn't even have the fund, but you expect that a private business can commit funds to it and wait for you to be able to pay, that's overstretching it.
Okay, so if we look at it from the perspective of yourself and Doc, in other words, this recent policy of the APG is it's already defeated.
It is not defeated.
It is defeated already.
It is not defeated.
Okay, so this is where I'm going. If it is defeated already, then I think the Procurement Act should be reviewed. Should be reviewed in a way that if it is a law that states that 20% of the contract sum should be, be given out to contractors for the initial stage for them to go to site, then it should be reviewed to 50 or it should be reviewed to 60%. However, I don't think I'm going to take back my words, because we have seen situations where even state governors had to go ahead to construct roads that belongs to the federal government, and they have requested from the federal government that, look, this is outside our jurisdiction, but we understood how important and how critical this road is to the commercial nerves of our city. So we do not have to wait for you. We have to go ahead to do it. I remember vividly Eichie did something like that in his administration and took it up with the government. And some other governors in their state have done some things like that. And sometimes, most times, I've heard of issues where the federal government paid. So for the contractors, they are dealing with politicians, they are dealing with the stakeholders. Then let us have the Procurement Act reviewed. However, if we cannot have that reviewed, then this is just a charade. the APG is defeated completely already, if we are to go by this.
Well,
I don't think it is defeated.
Then if it is not
says-
defeated, then we expect that the contractors should possess some form of finance.
It is
And
not that
if they go ahead to do more than the 20% that the government has given them for mobilization fee, there should be also somewhere in the law that says if the contractor does this, the government will pay back the money and pay interest on it so that the contractor can be protected. Because if we do not have that,
it is not defeated. If you say 20% for mobilization, after mobilization, fund is supposed to be released to continue the job. But when you mobilize and you're not releasing fund, you expect the contractor to bring the remaining 80%.
You see, let's look at the situation in which His Excellency David Mahi has found himself, where he has to revoke some certain contract for non-performance. He is in a dire situation, we must agree. And he's doing excellently well in terms of seeing that roads are done well, especially by contractor. The problem here is actually the bureaucracy. Even as old as the procurement law is and as inadequate as it may seem, let's even obey it fully. It's just like people say, Constitution of Nigeria, we have to review it. My argument has always been, even this one that is inadequate, have we finished obeying it? Which is a problem. We cannot be asking for a new constitution or a new act when the one that is currently in existence is obeyed in breach. What's the point here? Umari has a grant to say, this contractor, you are not performing. We have been on this road for this S number of time. But let us also see the part of the government. The man could actually say, okay, let me go ahead and use my money to do the job. Will government be ready to pay for the costs of fund if there are delay in payment? Should they include that on the agreement or contract to say, yes, we have a milestone? Because if I am going to procure a facility, for example, and I go to a bank and I said, okay, give me a bond to do this road, and they give me money or even give me outright cash to say, okay, take 20 billion, make this road. And in 1 year, you're going to pay 28% interest. Now, that's as good as having the job done. Now, the question is, I can factor the price, that 28%, into the cost of the project, hoping that I'm going to get the profit and then the cost of fund, then I return to the bank. But what if now at the end of the day, 1 year is gone and government has not fulfilled the part of the bargain? So which means if the contractor has no other source of fund, that loan he took from the bank will be compounded. And you see where somebody had borrowed 20 billion, after 2 years or 3 years on that job, is made to return 3 trillion or 1 trillion to the bank because of the compound interest and the default charges that he had to pay every day that he exceed the agreement with the bank. Now, all this we have to work out. And that's why the Procurement Act says, for you to award a contract, have the money in an account. Mobilize the contractor with 20%. At every milestone, give him additional money. Because the law is also afraid that if I give Priye all the money,
he may run away.
He can marry more wife and the job is not done. So the law is saying, but the money is somewhere, it's kept. But you're advancing them systematically as work makes progress until you get to the last 5%, which is called retention fee, which government is not supposed to release to you until the quality of the job you have done is tested. Now, these are all there. But the bureaucrats, do they obey these rules? You remember the very time His Excellency Umahi resumed, even the bureaucrats law came out and said, this is not a Ebonyi state. From the Ministry of Works. And the man is struggling to explain, no, this is about us. So it's like the bureaucrats are taking side with the contractors.
They came late
All
to
right,
work.
let's
He actually locked them out because
No.
we have to know this
The
issue.
locking out was just the icing on the cake. The actual issue was the fact that he insisted that some certain things be done.
Yes.
He insisted that some of the contracts that they were using asphalt wasn't right. That the cost of asphalt and the cost of concrete, that concrete was even cheaper than asphalt.
Okay, so I think bottom line is for the ministries and the Ministry of Works to also ensure that when contracts are awarded, the contractors that bid for this project and the ones that eventually get mobilized have the capacity to deliver, and then the agencies of government awarding the contract, they have enough fund for the completion of the job. Not that you expect that people would tie down business money and wait for whenever they can be paid. Let's also factor in that because it's business and because these are private businesses, they may not have the financial muscle that government or state government will have. And so let's do things right to ensure that Nigerians get to have the dividends of democracy, which also means that good infrastructure is there for things to happen, for development to thrive.